Hello folks, welcome back. Today in the workshop we have the trident maple that we've been working on probably the longest. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is the first tree that I shot a video on my YouTube channel. As you can see, we took the apex down and have been letting it grow freely. I've been getting a lot of course, because the tree is apically dominant, I've been getting a lot of apical growth, as well as growth all the way around the entire tree, to be quite honest. And I've just been keeping it in check and cutting it back and cutting it back and cutting it back. But I wanted to shoot a video today on this tree so I can kind of show you what I mean by cutting it back and cutting it back. I've got some unruly growth here and there, so I'm going to show you the techniques that I use just to keep everything cut back. Because it's going to be an ongoing fight throughout the entire season when you have a tree that's in this stage, that's in a growing container like this one is. Now this tree's been in this container for going on 4 years now. I think this is the 4th year that this tree's been in this container. So next year I'm going to need to repot it, and when I do, I'm going to need to do some severe root work to it, because I'm sure the roots on this thing are probably just encircling the bottom of the pot. It's got to have an immense root structure in order to be able to achieve the growth that we've been getting on the tree. Now that we've got the apex that we want, now that we've got everything kind of in place as far as where we were wanting to have it for the main skeletal structure, let's just call it for lack of a better term, on the tree, and we're working on ramification, now's the time to start focusing on not so much growth, but more, we're still going to get explosions of growth, but we need to start keeping it all in check, because the more we cut it back, the more we're going to get branches splitting out, the more ramification we're going to be able to achieve. And I'm probably going to be able to get this tree completely ramified in 2 to 3 years from this video. So let's go ahead and get started on the tree. Let me zoom out. Well, I don't really need to zoom out. It looks pretty good on the camera there, so we'll just keep it where we got it. Grab a couple tools here. Don't know that I'm going to need concave cutters today, but we might. So, as you can see, I'm sure you probably already know, the thread grafts, for some reason, that I did this year on all my trident maples, I only did them on 3 tridents. I did it on this one, I did it on the journey to the nursery trident maple, and I did it on the small one where we did the radical design change. They all didn't take this year. Don't know why. The only thing I can think of is maybe we got a really cold snap late in the year, and I'm talking about 8 inches of snow for 4 days, single-digit temperatures, and I think that's may have what did it and caused those thread grafts not to take. This one here on the back, I have a thread graft, and it's still alive, and it's still fairly viable, and it's a back branch, and it's low, so I'm going to leave it be. It's where I need it to be. It's in the right location for me. So this one is still alive. It's just not doing anything. It's just kind of there. It's not extending in growth. It's not showing me any signs that it even wants to be there. But it's alive, so we're just going to leave it be for now. I want to start over here on the lowest branch of the tree. You can see you're going to get these crazy offshoots like this all over the tree all summer long. What we do is we want to cut back all the way back. Let me zoom in. I want to zoom in on this so you can see exactly what I'm doing. Bear with me here. Perfect. Okay. Now, this is the long branch that I'm talking about here. It's going to continue to grow, and it's going to continue to thicken up this lower branch. We're not really concerned about that at the moment. What we're concerned about is keeping this whole thing in check and not allowing stuff like this to happen. So if you notice down here, right at the base where this stems from, we've got one set of leaves, a second set of leaves, and a third set of leaves within 1/8 of an inch to 36ths of an inch of themselves. And we're going to want to cut all the way back to there. Now, because this is a maple, I want to leave just the teeniest bit of a stub. That stub that I left is maybe 1/4 of an inch. Okay, and that's going to allow some dieback, some controlled dieback back to that area. Now, you can also see here's another one that has just started to come out in that same area. Okay, it's got out here at the tip, really, you can see these really teeny leaves here. That's actually the tip of this branch. This is wanting to try to take over as the tip of the branch. We need to remove that entirely. We want to keep this smaller weak area at the very tip of the branch because that's about where we want this branch to be for the overall design on this tree. Okay, so that's what I do to keep these things in check. We've got another one right here, kind of the same situation. It has just begun to come out, and I actually cut it back once already, and this is the resulting action. This is now starting to come out, so I'm going to need to keep a track of this. If this starts extending out, we need to cut it back and just keep everything in line on the tree. So that's what I'm going to do for the rest of this growing season on this tree. Now another thing I'm wanting to do on this tree for these lower areas, and I'm going to zoom back out so we can talk about that, is some areas of the lower branches on this tree I intentionally left long. And the reason I intentionally left them long was because I didn't know what kind of growth I was going to get. For instance, this one right here, this branch is way longer than what it needs to be. This branch right here is way longer than what it needs to be. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4. We're at the 4th growing nub on this tree, or I'm sorry, on this branch for the bottom portion of the tree. We don't need it to be that big. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut it back and remove the growing tip portion of it because I want it to branch out and ramify more. So now we've got 2 sets of leaves on this branch, and realistically it'll be removed to 1 set of leaves eventually, which is way back here at the back. The branch right next to it's got 2 sets of leaves. The branch next to it over here has got 2 sets of leaves. Now I do have a little bit of a situation here where I've got 2 branches coming to the same intersection here, and they're overlapping each other. This one branch actually needs to be moved out to here, so I am going to need to do a little bit of wiring today to this lower branch just to kind of move everything into position. Just cutting off some dead nubs at the same time. And I need to do some selective pruning here as well. I've got a branch that's growing straight down here, which is no good for the final design. Not only that, but there's 3 other branches right there in the same location. We don't want to have a reverse taper or a nasty nodule swell right there, so we need to remove that straight away. Also, in this same area, maybe I should zoom back in so we can talk about this area because there's a lot going on in just this one area that we need to think about now because it's going to have an effect on the overall design of the tree from here on out. Okay. This is actually the tip of the main branch. I have 2 branches, I don't know if you can see them or not, but I've got a branch here and a branch here coming from the same fork. Okay, one of them is larger than the other. It is ramification. What I want to do is make sure that this one doesn't get too thick and out of control, but you can see where I did my cut right here. There's a nub. And this branch here is long and skinny where this one decided to stay short and fat, and that's fine. But what I need to do is I need to take this branch here and wire it out into position so it's not shading out this other branch over here that I'm wanting to keep. So those are the things we need to be thinking about and working on now, is the placement of these branches now. To be quite honest, I could probably remove, I probably should remove, which we're going to go ahead and do, this portion of this branch so that when I do move this into position, I'm not going to be shading out the other portion of the branch that I want to keep, and that's also going to help us with the ramification because I've got this section over here. Okay, so we're going to wire this into position today, right where basically I have it with my thumb, okay, versus where it is now. We need to bring it out here to where it belongs. Now, right next to it on this branch, I've got this section. On this section, I've got a short stub, and I've got a long skinny stub here that has branched off as well. I've got 2 here and 1 here, so that's 3 coming from the same location. And that's fine, that's some ramification too. I've got, basically what I've got is I've got a fork. I've got a fork like this, and I've got one of these forks that has forked off again, and the other one is just growing straight. So I want to remove, it's actually growing down, which is not ideal, so this branch here, it's growing down instead of growing out, and right above it it's got a branch that's growing out, so we need to eliminate this down growing branch altogether. And I see we've got some woolly flies on this tree. This is a pest on the tree. See that right there? So actually a woolly aphid. I don't know if you can see that or not, but you can see what it does is it gets on the tree and it eats the bottom part of the leaf and eventually kills the leaf. That's what a leaf's supposed to look like without one. You can see what this one looks like with them. So we're going to have to do some spraying today with some insecticidal. So, but if you see anything like this little woolly looking thing right here, it's actually an aphid. Okay? And that's a pest. They don't really destroy much. I could really probably ignore it this year and not have an issue because the tree's so strong and it's growing so robust and so fast, I guess you could say. It's developing quite well. But on a weaker tree, it could eventually kill the entire branch. So you want to get into a mindset that whenever you see a pest, you want to go ahead and eliminate it right then and there, which is what I'm going to do. Because eventually, later on, you want to have a best practice for the tree, that in the event anything like that happens, you can diagnose it and address it and take care of it straight away. Okay, with the exception of the wiring, this lower branch now is pretty much summed up. There's just a couple other things I'm looking at doing. We've got another branch back here at the back. It's got 3. I think I can wire and twist that out. What's this one doing? This one's got a goofy branch down here growing. Can eliminate that. This one's eliminate that. And I think we're good. Just going to mechanically remove these aphids wherever I see them, and then I'm going to spray the tree and treat it afterward. Another thing I wanted to point out is I had a couple of scars down here last year. They're completely healed over. I love this tree and its ability to heal. This is the quickest healing trident maple I've ever seen. I love this tree because of that, and I think a lot of it has to do with the health of the tree, and a lot of it has to do with the techniques that I do. But for some reason this tree just, it just heals itself immediately, and it's a really, really strong growing tree as well, so really happy with it. Now, a couple other things here. Let's move on to the second level, if you will, of this tree, which is going to be these branches up here. I've got this branch here that's been growing freely and unchecked. Okay, I've got this over just a little bit. I've got this branch here that's been growing freely and unchecked, and I've got these over here that have been growing freely and unchecked. A couple reasons why I've done that. Number one, I need thread grafts for next year because I still plan on doing some thread grafting on this tree. So I need to selectively keep a few here and there. And what I'm doing at the moment, just in case anybody's wondering, I wired the branch that I did the thread graft through to the back, and it's set in place, it's dug in. And so I'm going to go ahead and remove the wire so that it does not scar the trunk. Because it is set in position and it's not going anywhere. And it's actually dug into the branch pretty severely, which doesn't matter because we're not keeping a branch, but my thought is maybe if I prevent it from digging in any further, that in turn is going to allow more energy to flow through this branch, which maybe in turn will allow it to send some more advantageous growth out to the back side where it comes through the trunk. So let's just completely eliminate all of this. There. Okay. Good deal. Alright, let's continue on now. Go ahead and prune this off, because this is just part of that sacrifice branch. It doesn't need to be doing anything there at the moment. So we can focus on above there. Alright, so I've got some options. I'm happy to see that as well. Cool. Alright, let's continue. Looking at this part of the tree only, not worrying about the lower part anymore because we've gotten that done with the exception of the wiring for right now. We've got these sacrifice branches. Now, does all of this need to be sacrificial branching? No. Do we need to keep maybe one so we can do some sacrificial branch grafting next year? Yes and no. No, because these branches here would be utilized for either a back branch or a branch on the other side of the tree. I've got this branch here that I can utilize as a sacrificial branch to come to this side of the tree. And if you look, this side of the tree is naked basically on this lower portion. I really need to get something over here next year, and hopefully it will take so I can do what I need to do. So I'm going to eliminate the sacrificial branch growth over here on this side because I don't need it. I've got plenty more up top. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this branch because it's starting to get pretty thick. And I don't want it to get too thick because of how high up it is in the tree. So really we need to work on ramification on this branch if we're going to be keeping it. So in turn we need to kind of keep it in check by eliminating any growing shoots that are coming off of it and just kind of allowing it to be in a stagnated state of growth. Anytime I see anything popping out of here, I'm going to immediately cut it back. Now I've got this lower portion that's growing out here, and I've got a back portion that's growing out, and this back portion is starting to get fairly thick. I don't know that I need to keep that. Matter of fact, I think I'm going to go ahead and eliminate it now because I don't want any unsightly swelling on the back side of this tree. And I've got a branch that's coming out right behind it. So my branching, the way I do my branching off of my main branches is I have, let's see, I need a visual aid here. Visual aid. I don't try to do this if I can help it. You've got a main branch and then you've got two branches coming off of it. When I have a situation like this, what I'll typically do is I'll remove one of the two branches, okay, and then I'll still get a small branch coming out of here, but it's not going to be the same size as this main branch is. Okay, and then I'll probably come up here like this, and I'll eliminate that, and then I'll grow tertiary branches out this way. I don't have two coming out at the same location and then cut them at the same height. I always like to stagger my branches. I think that way it gives you a more natural look, and ultimately you don't have a bunch of branches that are in the way of each other. So that's what I try to do when I'm working these branches. And I can show you, you can probably zoom in up here. I can show you exactly what I've just done. Yeah, switch out. Yeah, perfect. Okay. This branch is the branch we're referring to. I just removed this large piece that was growing right here on the branch. We've actually got 3 branches coming out from the same junction, and we obviously don't want that. So I removed this back one to keep the swelling down to a minimum. I've got this branch here that's back behind it that's come out, that's going to take over this area. This piece here is the main piece that's going to keep on going out this way. And then I've got a little really weak one in the front. I've actually got 2 really weak ones in the front, so I need to eliminate this other weak one here so we don't get energy transferred to it and get that ugly swelling that we're trying to avoid. So now you can see this branch now. It comes out, it's got a branch here, it's got a branch here, and then the main branch, and I've got this little teeny dormant bud at the top here, which we're going to leave just to keep this area energized. Not so much energized that it needs to be growing like crazy, but we'll keep it that way. Now I've got another branch here that I really don't need, and I've got a sucker up above it that I really don't need. However, they're small and they're weak, and if I really wanted to, because this branch is getting a little bit large for the area that it's in, I may end up eliminating it altogether next year in favor of one of these 2 weaker branches because of how high it is on the tree. But for now, we're going to keep our options open. They're all cut back now. All they can do is ramify from here. So that's that on here. Matter of fact, you can even see, if I zoom way in, hope you can see this. We've got dormant buds. Right down here in the cricks of this branch, right here at the tip of where my scissor is, that's a dormant bud right there. So because we've cut it back here, and it's going to die back to here, these buds are going to energize, and they're going to come out and create 2 more branches this growing season. So that's how we get our ramification on these trees in a fast amount of time. Now it's okay to be doing this kind of work on these smaller tertiary branches, but you don't want to be doing any main branch removal this time of year. Okay? You might be able to get away with it, but in the past I've had experiences where when I've done that, it actually died all the way back to the trunk and then consequently all the way down the trunk, and then I've got a big dead spot on the trunk that I don't want to be there. So always something to think about. Now let's look here. This is a downward growing branch. It's in the front of the tree. Also back behind here we've got a couple things going on that we don't necessarily need. Like this branch is getting in the way. It just an offshoot of the sacrifice branch growing up and trying to grow through the canopy. We don't need that. We've got a couple small branches here that we don't need. Good, get rid of those. We need to tell the tree, hey, stop doing that and let's focus on this. Now I've got a couple, again, going with the adage that you want your smaller branches, you want you to be progressively having smaller branches as you go up towards the top of the tree. We've got a fairly thick branch here, an even thicker branch up top, but we've got some really small brand new shoots down low here. Gotcha. I'm not going to keep them because they're not in the right location, but that's things that you need to look at and think about for future on these trees as far as development is concerned. by eliminating these now, that allows some more light to get to this thread grafted branch that we have back here. And hopefully we'll encourage it to start growing. Alright, and like I said, this is just a matter of cutting these back. I've got another one also above this branch here. Because I'm allowing this to grow freely as a potential sacrifice branch for another thread graft on this side for the third time. First time squirrels toasted it. Second time was this past year. I toasted it, or maybe the weather toasted it. I'm going to blame it on myself, not on the weather. I'm just going to say it was something that I didn't do right. So, again, now third year. This is probably going to be, this branch here is probably going to be way thicker than it needs to be for this portion of the tree. I've got a branch just directly above it, and I've got this other branch here off to the side of it. And I've got a couple dormant ones below there. So my thought is, let's let this grow freely so it can be a nice strong branch to make as a sacrificial branch. However, I've also got this one up above it that I need to look at here potentially. I've got this one here in the back. This is already starting to split off, so I think what we'll do is it's been my opinion and my observation, let's just say, that the higher up on the tree that the sacrifice branch is, the more likely it is for it to take off and grow faster the next growing season. So let's just go ahead and say we don't want you as a sacrifice branch anymore. Thank you for your growth, but we're going to go a different route. We're going to use this one to come down and through next year. It's a lot higher up on the tree because the tree is naturally an apically dominant species. I think that this branch will end up growing stronger next year than the branch that was below it. And so we're going to leave that one there just for now. We always got to leave ourselves some options. Okay, because that's there, let's see what we've got going here. We've got a mass moving up the tree further now. We need to start looking at all the stuff we've got going on up here in the apex. This apex is just out of control. Alright, let's look at this side before we get all the way to the top. This is our sacrifice branch we're using next year. We got some other branches over here behind it that are trying to kind of take off. We're going to cut those back and tell them, nope, not you, the other one. And you want to be more diligent about your apex growth on these trees as far as keeping it cut back and keeping it compact, because it has a tendency to take off and get real thick a lot faster. So this is growing straight up. We don't want that. This is growing out. I'm going to keep that back. Again, this is another option that we're going to keep for a sacrifice branch. This is actually the back branch, or a back branch on the tree. So it's long, it's not branching out, the growing tip's still viable. It's another thing you want to look at on these, and I'll show you. That was another reason why I chose to remove this one as a sacrifice branch, because it had gotten an injury. I had not cut this back, but it had gotten an injury at the growing tip here. Okay, and because it got an injury at the growing tip, it pushed out 2 branches just below it. So it probably would not have been the best option for a sacrifice branch, and that's why we decided not to keep that branch and to keep one up above it. It's still got its growing tip, and it'll continue to come out in next year as well, as long as it doesn't get any damage. So we're just going to go through here and remove what we don't want. Kill these little fuzzy aphids wherever we see them. I just want to mechanically remove them wherever you see them, and then spray the tree down as well afterward to get the ones that you don't see. All that's in check, all that's in check. We got the sacrifice branch back here, we got this sacrifice branch here. Let's go ahead and get that trimmed back a little bit because that's got a nasty looking nodule. We don't need all of that. Let's do this. Okay. Tuning up the tree to the apex. This apex is out of control again. Alright, this apex we need to focus on next. Of course, you know I can't control the growth on a tree, but I have to direct it as to what I want to do. Let's zoom in up here. Good. This apex is crazy. I mean, this tree is just so massively apexally dominant that it's getting a little out of hand with itself. This is the continuation of the apex. You can see up here, I've got just a massive amount of branches coming out all at the same location, and I've already got a nasty reverse swell up here. I'm actually eliminating all of this, but notice, I'm leaving a huge stub for it to die back to. Also notice, I've cut back to this here. This here is actually going to be the new apex on the tree. Now, in order to keep that same nasty swell from going on below here, I've got to start selectively choosing some branches here as well, because I've got a lot of stuff coming out at the same spot. So we need to do that now, because it already is starting to have a little nasty bit of swelling going on there as well. Also, the apex here. Or we could actually use this here as the apex. Let's look at this. I don't want it to be leaning too far forward, but what I could do is I could wire this up and over. Like so. That's probably going to be our better option. Let's eliminate this back one here. Okay. There's a couple dormant buds back there I didn't want to pop, so I want to chop just below those buds. Alright, this is actually, this part of the tree right here is going to be our new apex. And this is something you're going to have to do constantly to keep the tree in check. Here's another one of those stupid aphids. Okay. Now I'm going to wire it into position, but I'm not going to wrap a wire around it because it's too small. It's very young. I'm going to use a different technique on that one. Basically what I'm going to do with this one is just get a small piece of wire and I'm going to utilize the part of the branch that I cut off and bring this up. Take this branch, this piece of wire. I'm going to take this piece of wire and bend it at the center. And then I'm going to put this around the dead part of the branch I cut off and then twist it like a twist tie in the back. And that will hold the branch in a position, letting it know, hey, you're the new apex, you're the boss, but at the same time not do any damage to it. If it gets growth, it starts to grow a little bit out of control. So basically just like that. Hope you can see that. I think you can see that. So that's it. That's what we do for this part of this tree, letting it know, okay, you're the new apex. Don't get too carried away. You're in charge. And to keep competitiveness to a minimum, trim back everything else around it. I don't need to worry about these large leaves trimming them back or anything like that. But any other branches growing up there, I want to trim them all the way back as far as I can to let them know you're not the boss. Don't try to be the boss. That's the one I want to be the boss. Alright, I think that's going to be good for now on this tree. Just going around and cutting off any dead stubs that I see from where I've trimmed it back a couple times this year already. Just to clean it up a little bit, that's all. Alright, let's get a small piece of wire and wire up the one branch that we need to wire on the tree, and I think we'll be done. I don't have any wire right now, so I'll do that off camera. Alright, just to recap. That piece of wire may work. I don't think it's going to. I don't think it's long enough. Just to recap, this is what it looks like now after we've done what we've done on this phase of the growth on the tree. Sacrifice branch to make another one down here. We've kept one other one in the back. It's actually a little bit stronger for the same purpose. Eliminated the unsightly bulge up here at the apex. Selected a smaller, weaker branch up here for the new apex. Wired it in position without wrapping around the branch. And have done some reduction to keep everything kind of in check. And that is pretty much where we are for this summer. Now what we're going to see, because we've done this, is more of these dormant buds popping and trying to get dominant growth. As soon as you see those come out, let them extend till they're about 3 inches. Immediately cut them back to one set of leaves. Okay? If not, they're going to just take off and try to be the apex of the tree. Now what we're trying to focus on is, here's the apex, we want it to be here, we don't want it to get any bigger. This is the boss of the tree, this is the top of the tree. There's going to be stuff going, well, I want to be the top of the tree. You got to keep all that completely eliminated. Also on the sides here as well. whatever's not a sacrifice branch needs to be immediately eliminated from the tree. So let's do a quick 360 here. We'll put this one back out on the bench. Again, like I said, I'm going to wire this branch into position off the camera because I don't have any. I got to get wire from upstairs. Thank you for watching.